Well, let's start at the beginning. How long have you been in the production, entertainment, creative world? It looks like you maybe got started around 2008. Is that right?
Um, no comment on the year because ageism is a thing in Hollywood, and
Okay.
a, a woman must be very mindful to never reveal her age. So, anyway, leave it up to your imagination. But yes, a long time is the answer. A long time.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, what made you want to go down that route? What made you want to get into production and the creative side of entertainment?
I Well, I guess I started, I was just born this way. Let's put it like that. I was just born wanting to be in show business. And so when I was a little kid, I loved to watch TV. I loved to go to the movies. My mom indulged that by taking me to the theater and the children's theater, and then allowing me to watch a lot of TV and movies and such.
Right?
And as soon as I was able to learn, and I asked my parents, like, how do these, what is this, and like, how can I get in the TV, or and as soon as I comprehended that, I just wanted to be a part of it. But I lived in New Orleans, and that's where I was born, where I grew up. There wasn't a lot of show business going on in my area, although through the years there was a lot of location filming that happened around me, but not a lot of stuff that I could be part of from the beginning. And then as a kid, my parents were fine with letting me watch stuff, but they didn't want me to be in stuff.
Hmm.
So I was very limited to like school talent shows and
Okay.
drama clubs and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, so my first love was performing, and I majored in drama communications in college. I went to Loyola New Orleans, and then I went to grad school at San Diego State, and I earned an MFA in musical theater. So that the performing track was what I wanted to be on, and I thought maybe I would teach at the university level. That was a possibility. That would be my safety job. But I quickly found out my last semester of grad school, when I was applying for jobs, that I could not get a job in education to save my life, because I was applying for jobs to be an acting teacher, and there are too many of those out here. So working production and development and behind the scenes stuff was plan B. Or yeah, I guess you could say it was plan B, or plan C maybe, because plan A would have been acting.
Right.
And I would get little acting jobs
Hmm.
here and there, but not anything that where I could just say this is my big break. Oh, I'm getting pinged from a client of mine,
It's okay.
momentarily
It's okay.
distracted. So
All good.
yeah. So anyway, and then I was a dancer, but I wasn't really coordinated enough to serve people in restaurants or cater or things like that. So I
Right.
thought, okay, I can't break into education because there are too many people who want to be acting professors out here, and
Hmm.
they've all won Oscars and Emmys, and I have done nothing but educational theater, so I can't do that right now. And then I can't find a full-time acting job because they're also hard to come by. And then so then I thought, well, I can pursue behind the scenes stuff. But and a big source of employment in my early career was temping.
Okay.
So I did temping, and then I was also able to network my way into a couple of assistant jobs. I was an agent assistant for a while and stuff like that. But my first long-term role as working in development, mostly creative development and marketing, and actually merchandise-driven entertainment, that came through temping, and it was a temp job that lasted over 5 years. So I'm grateful for temping.
Right, definitely. One thing I've watched a couple interviews you've done, and one thing I think is really cool is Pink Poodle Productions, which is your baby. You started that. We have something in common. I started the Front Row Report as a portfolio and an online resume coming out of college, so
Uh-huh.
that when I went to go find jobs in journalism, I would have something to show what I've done. And then it blossomed into this whole crazy world that we're in now. And that is similar to how you started Pink Poodle. How
Yes.
tell me about Pink Poodle and how it blossomed from a portfolio to what it is now. You got clients and all kinds of stuff. Like, how does that happen for you? How do you grow it?
It was not intentional. It was so most of my career has been taking lemons and making lemonade. You might have heard that on some of my
Yeah,
interviews. That's a frequent refrain of mine.
right.
And so I actually it was probably maybe 7 or so years ago. It was when I was working at Sega.
Mhm.
I just decided that I needed to have a website to to showcase stuff, and
Yeah,
because I most of the time in the entertainment business, the job that you have is not going to be your last job because
right.
there's so much turnover and backstabbing and
It's very
various other
cutthroat. Yeah,
drama and whatever.
politics.
And so certain events converged at the time that made me think I should be more prepared
Mm,
for unemployment than I am. So
right,
I started, and I love pink and I love poodles, and
right,
that's about as much. I wanted to think of something pleasant while I was doing this task. So that's where Pink Poodle came from. I find job hunting very stressful. And so I thought
yeah,
creating the website is an extension of that. I might as well conjure pleasant thoughts while I do it.
right.
So anyway, love pink, love poodles. So there's the company name. And then I just got a GoDaddy account and started plugging in
Yeah,
numbers and pictures and text and stuff like that. And then at the time also I was entering a number of film festivals. I had been a frequent fixture on the festival circuit on behalf of employers, like entering, like there were some of our Sonic Boom content, Sonic Boom and Sonic various other things that I entered into film festivals. But I made a short film in 2017 with my two little nieces who were ages 10 and 7 at the time, and my dog, Blanche. And so I thought on all the festival applications, they ask you for a project website or company website or whatever. And I was
right.
like, well, okay, this will serve that purpose too, because it'll make me more legit. So I just set it up, had stuff on there, just videos of things that I worked on and photos, just a mishmash of whatever. And then I've
Yep.
always done a lot of freelance journalism. So I linked to some articles that I wrote and whatever, and there it was. And so then what happened? Oh, I ended up getting another job, and while I was at Sega, I applied for and got another a more lucrative
Mhm.
position with a better title at a company called Level 5. And so the website was instrumental, I think, in that, because I was
Nice.
able to put that on there. Here I was, kind of proud of myself with my little website and all. And then after, going into year 2 of Level 5, the company shut down all of its branch offices. It's a Japanese video game company. And so the LA office was closed, and the Hong Kong office, and the Seoul office. And there went my job. And I didn't have another job waiting for me. So I don't like to show gaps in employment on my resume
Mhm.
because I don't think employers like to see that. So therefore, I don't like to show it. And
Right.
so I fully intended to keep working on something. I did have a couple of freelance opportunities that I could jump into, but nothing full time. But I was just like, you know what? I am going to put Pink Poodle Productions on my LinkedIn
Yeah.
and on my resume as my full time employment, because why should I give another employer who can fire me at any point? Why should I give them equity in my resume? Like, why should I do
Mhm.
that? Because really, even if I do work full time for another company, I kind of feel like they are a client because it's not going to be permanent. I know it's not. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a cynical attitude, I know, but this is what happens to a person when you've been hardened in the business for all these years. So it's what I like to call forced entrepreneurship, and so I have had full time employment since going full time. Like I have had legit, where I get health
Yeah.
benefits and so forth, but I've never given up any of my side hustles. And
Yeah.
sometimes the side hustles bring in more money than the full
Yeah.
time things. And nobody else is going to look out for me like me. So
Mhm.
unless somebody, if I have an employer at some point who forces me, that's which I don't think will happen. I don't think employers really care that much. But if it's absolutely pertinent for me to put the employer as my main employer
Yeah.
on my LinkedIn, on my resume, then I'll do it. But it seems like if an employer would be doing that, they'd be like exerting coercive control, and
Mhm.
hopefully I wouldn't have to work for a slave master like that. So
Right.
so yeah. So I've just been working under Pink Poodle Productions for the last 5 years, and
Right.
I have mostly been working with different clients on either a per project basis or like a monthly retainer
Mhm.
basis. And yeah, I just prefer to work. So it's not like I have so many choices before me that I can say like, oh, this one and not this one. It's not like that. It's usually taking something, kicking and screaming, and then making it into the job that I like,
Yeah.
and molding it and shaping it and turning it into something great. And not to disparage my various clients and or employers. There's like so it's very difficult to succeed in the entertainment business. And a lot of the employers that I've had are overseas companies, and they want to do business here. And it's really just even a struggle for them to understand the English language, much less the
Sure.
weirdness that goes on, the politics and
Yeah.
the moving targets in Hollywood and stuff like that. I mean, people from the States can't figure it out. So how can people from other countries come here? And it's always changing. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
just my weird philosophy and way of working and coping through the
Right.
employment aspect of my life.
I mean, I understand a lot of that to a degree because I mean, obviously interviewing primarily a lot of bands and artists, and
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of that, but also I do a lot of work in professional wrestling out here in Indianapolis, and good God, the politics and
Oh
everything that
wow.
comes with that, like you just never know,
What do
it's.
you do? What do you do with wrestling?
So I work for a company here in Indianapolis, and I do multiple things with them. One of them is working behind the scenes, helping put the matches together, write the show, figure out who's wrestling who, what are we doing in the storylines and the creative, on camera. We filmed a home invasion last month with all kinds of stuff. And then on top of that, I am basically an on camera bad guy analyst type character, management on screen, a lot of different things. And so,
Oh
you
my
know,
goodness. I
you
should
get
have researched you better or at all.
it's all
Wow.
good. This isn't about
I'm in the
researching me.
presence
This
of
is about
greatness.
researching you. But yeah, I mean, you get all of the wrestlers contacting you for what am I doing this week? Can I wrestle so and so? I want to do this. And, like constant, just it comes from all directions. And you don't know who's going to be there one week, the following week. It's just, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of extra stress. But in the end, one thing I wanted to ask you that I've kind of experienced is when you have put all of this time and effort and work into creating something and
Hmm.
really developing it, how rewarding is it to you? And what is the feeling like for you when you see it come to life and become a living, breathing product, whether it's a video game or a movie or a TV show?
Oh, it's rewarding. It is. It's a warm, fuzzy feeling. Um, yeah, I mean it's a good feeling. However, as the good feeling was enough to sustain me for a long time when I was
Mhm.
early in my career, and
Sure.
now that I'm much older, it's not enough. Now I'm like thinking of retirement and like, okay, I could do with less warm fuzzies and more in my bank account.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is it, and the things that I enjoy the most are when something comes from my brain. Like I've worked on a lot of cool brands,
Mhm.
which is wonderful, especially for bragging rights, and it helps me
Sure.
get on podcasts for sure. So that's great. But like if I write something and it gets acknowledged in a film or script competition or publishing an article, like that's the most satisfaction for me to see something that came from my brain.
Yeah.
Whereas when I work on a brand, usually that is more lucrative than something
Yeah.
that I come up with because I'm not a superstar creator. But but I'm just like a cog in a big machine. Like
You're
when I
working on
worked on
somebody
all the,
else's vision,
yeah, somebody else's intellectual property, and
Yeah.
it's not necessarily my voice or even entertainment that I like to partake in
Yeah.
my free time. So I have to I'll toe the company line, and I think I'm pretty good at that. But in my heart I have other things that I
Yeah.
like my dog, for instance. Like Blanche has been waiting so patiently her whole life to have her own show and or something. And I've managed to, as a pushy stage mom, get her into stuff. And we did the short film about
Yeah.
her, and that was like it's called Blanche's Bichon Buzz, and it was in a lot of festivals and what have you. But truth be told, she is still waiting for her big break. So if I could get Blanche, like, if she could really, if she could have her big break, that would be the ultimate.
Yeah. Yeah, completely understand that. Yeah, I mean, my daughter is huge into YouTube, and she's convinced she has a YouTube channel, and she doesn't. But when she sees like her friends will watch my videos at work, at school, or whatever, I'll mention her in a YouTube
Oh,
video or stuff like that. And she's on YouTube. She did it. So
oh,
so
how old is
yeah, like
she?
she's
Oh,
12. So
okay.
yeah, she's 12, and then we have three-year-old twins, a boy and a girl.
Oh,
And
wow.
yes, and our son loves Sonic. He has Sonic clothes, Sonic dolls. Whenever we pull up Netflix, Sonic Boom, and so obsessed with Sonic and Spider-Man.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, yes.
Interesting.
Yes. So
Interesting.
yeah, it's Sonic's a big thing in our household. So, but that franchise goes deep. It's more than just video games. It's more than just a movie. Like it goes back over 30 years, which a lot of people don't realize. It's almost as old as I am, which is scary. Uh, but how did you
Yeah.
get involved with Sega? The transition from RGH to Sega, what was that like for you? And how did you come into that position and that job with that company?
It was incredible luck and LinkedIn. So this is going to be my LinkedIn tribute part of the program here. I usually have a little shout out, but I'll give a big shout out to LinkedIn. So I am very active on LinkedIn because
Mhm.
I see benefit in it, and really I have not much of another life except for work. My life is mostly work.
Mine
And
too.
so therefore, LinkedIn is where I can see more return on my investment
Mhm.
of time and effort. I have a premium membership and all that.
Oh, wow.
So I'm always posting, and and also I manage the women in animation, the community group, and so we've
Cool.
grown to like almost 30,000 members. So it's like, oh, these are my people. So I spend a
Yeah.
lot of time there, and I really think just putting my time in there, it boosts me in the searches. Like if recruiters, and I am not a mathematician, and I don't have
Mm.
any other proof except for my intuition, but I feel like the more I post, the more I'm able to be found by
Mhm.
recruiters and such. And so a recruiter just contacted me out of the blue, and she said that there was a company, and she didn't give the name, but she said it's a Japanese company that has a presence in the U.S. and they're about to move their office. That their U.S. office was in the Bay Area for many years. They're moving it down to Burbank,
Mm.
and they're essentially staffing the office. They're starting all over again with staffing. So she said, we really are looking for people who have experience working with Japanese companies, or at least Asian companies.
Right.
And I was thinking, wow, that is me. Because early in my career, the first 5 years that I was in Hollywood, I worked on Power Rangers and
Mhm.
Digimon and all the great hits of the Fox Kids network. And then after that, I worked with a Korean animation studio for several years, and then RGH was a Jordanian studio, and Jordan is a part of Asia. So there you go. So it's like a big chunk of my career was working for Asian companies. I was so delighted that someone was actually seeking out that kind of experience, and so I didn't have to fill out an online resume, which is like the work of the devil. Those horrible, horrible online applications, and it was such a blessing. But I ended up having like 10 or so grueling interviews after that.
Oh
And
God.
it was, some were in person, some were online. And but then I ended up getting the job. And so my title was producer, comma, TV series, which was a catch-all title for like working on all kinds of screen content. So not necessarily, I did work on the games, but it was more from the perspective of the content that supports the games.
Okay.
And so yeah, so I resigned from RGH and then just went over to Sega. And Sega, that was when Sega started the Burbank office in 2015. And so it was basically just a skeleton crew because Sega had laid off everybody, or almost everybody in the Bay Area, and
Wow.
closed up that big office. Yeah, it was a big, huge office that they had for like 30 something years. And then it just became, it was not good times for Sega or
Right.
Sonic in 2015. And so I think Sega had bought Atlas, which was in Irvine, Orange County. So there was some talk that those offices would merge, which ended up not happening. There's still, Atlas is still in Orange County, but it's been rebranded as Sega, and then Sega also has a Burbank office. So I
Okay.
was just one of 14 people that started the
Oh,
Burbank office, and we
wow.
were all new. Everyone. Oh well, I take that back. There were three or four people who came down from the Bay Area who relocated, but everybody else was laid off, and then there were all new people hired, and so we were just this tiny group taking over from like 100 or so
Yeah.
people. So we all wore a lot of hats. It was just like all hands on deck all day, every day.
Wow.
And so I really got a, a good immersion into the Sega way,
Mhm.
the Sonic mythology, the fandom, because
Yeah.
especially because the at the time the head of community, Aaron Weber, and I sat next to each other, and that was the most educational experience of my life, was to watch him and just his magical way of fan whispering. And I mean, Aaron is just a genius, and I sing his praises on a lot of podcasts because I really credit him with all the success that Sonic has today.
Mhm.
It's because of the things that all the things that Aaron put in place. From
Right.
well, Aaron's been with Sega since he was a child.
Wow.
Really, he started at Sega as a fan forum moderator when he was like 14, and then when he was 19 and in college, Sega Bay Area Sega recruited him full time. So he left college and went to go work for Sega. So
Wow.
when I was working with him, he had like the longest tenure of all of us with Sega, but he was like the youngest person in the office. It was crazy.
Well,
So, but he's a genius for sure.
working so closely with him, who knew the product obviously so well, but also in such a crazy, chaotic time for all of you guys, having him there, did that help kind of de-stress you guys a little bit?
Oh, it Aaron, like I can't say enough good things about Aaron because he's he was just the perfect person for that job, and such a force of calm. And now I think he did feel a lot of stress, and
Sure.
but he was able to mask it
Yeah.
for a while. I mean, he
Sure.
never he was just the kindest person, the sweetest person, and so knowledgeable, but not intimidating. He couldn't help it. He just knew everything there was to know. And so on his own initiative, he offered to teach classes on Sonic and Sega history to us. I think we
Wow.
did it on Friday afternoons for the first few months that we were working there, because a lot of us didn't know the history, like you said,
Mhm.
is so deep. The
Yeah.
company is old and venerable, and it's very helpful to understand the dynamic between Sega of Japan and Sega of America,
Hmm.
especially when dealing with the Sonic franchise. They're so commingled, the Sonic history and
Yeah.
Sega history, and all of that. And Aaron had been working in the Bay Area for a few years before he came to Burbank, so he knew a lot, and he was able to fill in a lot of gaps, because like um uh, most of us went to San Francisco to train for a few days, or in some cases a couple of weeks, with
Mhm.
the people who were being laid off. It was very awkward. It was so awkward.
Yeah.
The people who knew that their jobs were ending had to train
That's
us.
that's
And
not good
so
for
so
anyone.
not it wasn't the most productive
Yeah.
training
Yeah.
atmosphere. It was
I can
kind of
imagine.
hostile.
I
But
bet.
so, and then there was stuff that was supposed to be packed up and shipped to Burbank. Some of it got there, some of it did not, like cute little office decorations and stuff. Those A lot of those things went
They probably
missing.
took them with them
Um
left, honestly.
and yeah, I mean, but there was just like files and
Yeah.
historical things that got lost in that shuffle. And
Mhm.
thank God for Aaron, because his memory is infallible. I mean, he'd go toe to toe with Sonic Team, which sometimes didn't turn out so well for him. But he remembered everything, even
Wow.
from before he was born. He knew.
Wow.
And so like the Sonic team members would come from Japan to visit every so often. And then two of them actually moved to Los Angeles, and they still live here. But they have this incredible history because they've been with the brand since day one or even prior to that. But it's only natural for someone's memory to falter after
Yeah.
a while. And but not Aaron. Aaron was the keeper of the lore and knew minutia, just everything, every title, just everything. And it was not something that he pursued. Like, it wasn't that that he studied it. He just loved it, and that's really hard to manufacture that in a person. Like, it was just organic. He truly grew up with and loved Sega and Sonic, and it came through in every aspect of his work. So, and the fans really related to him as if he was, well, he is one of them. He really was. But
Yeah.
even more than that, it was like he was like this oracle, like Buddha, like
He's
Sonic Buddha.
he's the biggest Sonic fan. Like, there's not a fan bigger than him, you know? Like, I mean, like, I don't know if this is a good comparison, if there's bad blood there, but like Sonic is Sega's Mario. It,
Oh
it
yeah,
really
yeah.
is. Like, I don't know if there's a competition between the two. I'm sure there is, but
Oh
like it really
yes,
is.
that's the
Is there bad
history.
blood there between the
Oh yes. So okay, your listeners and watchers might be interested to know, and you yourself,
yeah.
that there is a book by a wonderful author who I know through Aaron. His name is Blake Harris. He wrote a book called Console Wars, and it was made
Okay.
into a documentary by Seth Rogen. Seth
Oh,
Rogen also is a big Sega and Nintendo fan. He
yeah.
likes both. But
Right.
anyway, he and his producing partner Evan Goldberg even wrote the foreword to the book. But
All right.
Console Wars is about Sega versus Nintendo in the early 90s. And Sonic is the company mascot of
Hmm.
Sega.
Yeah.
That really, it was conceived that way.
Hmm.
And it was something that it was a task that was entrusted to Sega of America, but it it was a case of I don't know. It started out as friendly competition between Sega of Japan and Sega of America, and then devolved into a lot of politics. So Console Wars is about Nintendo versus Sega, much like Apple versus Microsoft, is
Yeah.
kind of like that sort of rivalry.
Yeah.
But it's also a story about Sega of Japan versus Sega of America,
Hmm.
and
Interesting.
the conflict there. So anyway, Blake Harris, wonderful author, wrote this book, and so I'm fortunate in that I was able to meet a lot of the people featured in the book who were
Nice.
employees of Sega when Sonic was invented. And it was very groundbreaking what they Tom Kalinske was the head of Sega of America at the time. And it was his idea to take the Sonic games, and package them with the consoles so that people would have this really cool game with the
Mhm.
Sega mascot. It was
Yeah.
all like synergy,
Hmm.
and then it was all inclusive, so that people would be ready to just jump right into a cool game as soon as they opened up the box
Yes. I miss
for their
those days.
consoles. Yeah. And
Yeah.
um so it was really an amazing success story. But like you had pointed out, the brand's been around for a long time, and pretty much all brands, even if they're not old, it's a struggle to launch a brand, and then
Mhm.
to keep it in the forefront for years is
Yeah.
pretty much impossible. I mean, even a person, look at a person's life is ups and downs. There aren't a lot of, I mean, it might seem like some people are on an upward trajectory the whole way through, but if you really analyze what's going on behind the social media posts, it's a lot of this, a roller
Mhm.
coaster ride.
Yeah.
And so that's the history of Sega and Sonic, but really fascinating. So I highly recommend the book Console Wars, and then it's a Paramount, I think it's on, yeah, Paramount Plus documentary. So you can see like interviews with
Nice.
Tom Kalinske and his whole team as they talk about this rivalry. And then actually it was supposed to be made into a scripted TV show. With Legendary Entertainment, but I think the announcement came out right around COVID and like 2020 maybe, and I think COVID might have derailed some of those plans. And the scripted series hasn't come out, but you can watch the documentary
Yeah.
on the Paramount Plus network, and it's a really interesting story.
Is there a difference for you between working on a video game, a TV show, and a movie, or are they very similar for you and what you do?
Yeah, I would say a TV series is more fast paced because you've got all
Multiple
these
episodes.
multiple episodes, and there are several things in production at the same time. And
Okay.
so like it's not like you do one episode all the way through and then you stop it. It's like overlapping, like you're in one stage with one episode, another stage with another episode, and
Oh, wow.
it keeps going. It's, yeah, it's a lot of juggling.
Wow.
But it's exciting, and then you get to see the results, or in theory you do, if you have a broadcast commitment in the country that you're working in. Sometimes that doesn't always happen. Like I
Right.
worked on a show that's now on Crunchyroll, and we were doing English language localization for the Japanese, from the Japanese. We were doing we were working on the English and the French translation, or localization at the same time. And we didn't have broadcast commitments at the time that we were producing the episode. So we did have deadlines because we couldn't just luxuriate in the process, but we weren't delivering to a network. The distribution deal happened after we finished
Hmm.
everything. So it wasn't like we could have that gratification of like, oh, seeing it on Crunchyroll,
Yeah.
while we, and then talking about it at the office the next day. We didn't have that.
Right.
That was less fun.
That's a bummer.
But yeah, and a film takes a long time. See, TV series do too, but at least like once you, if you have to coordinate the release in conjunction with like a toy launch, or
Oh,
you've got a broadcast commitment or a game launch, it's going to go at a certain point, like you'll develop it in tandem with, and this is I'm talking mostly about merchandise driven
sure.
entertainment. So things
Yeah.
that are based on um, video games or toys, or something that has like a cross media
Yeah,
strategy behind it.
for sure.
Those are mostly the things that I've worked on. I've worked on documentary style podcasts and things like that, but nothing that's ever gone to the screen. So
Sure.
I'm less familiar with that process, although I'd like to be more familiar. Anybody
Yeah.
out there listening?
There you
I love
go.
documentaries and true crime, so hint
Yes.
hint.
Yes.
But yeah, it's quite different to develop something in conjunction with a consumer product um plan, or what, if it's
Mhm.
if you're working on it from the brand side. Like for example, if you're working on something with Lego, like it's not like you can operate in a bubble and not consider the Lego toys that will
Yeah,
correspond with what you're doing.
sure.
It's just like everything is really going toward influencing consumer behavior. It's not just art for art's sake. And
Right.
so that's mostly what I've worked on. So, but yeah, film usually takes more time to develop, and then it's like a one shot deal
Hmm.
typically. I did have a situation where I was working on a trilogy of films, but then the company behind it sort of fell apart, and nothing happened. So,
Right. Wow.
so that's another thing with film. It's like your financing or some key element could fall out at any point in time and
Mhm.
then derail the whole project. I mean,
Oh
I guess
God.
that could happen with anything, but
Yeah.
it seems in my experience is more likely with a film
Mhm.
for everything to come crashing down. So
What was your role with Power Rangers? I know you worked a lot. You worked with Frank Ward a lot, here and there. What was your experience
yeah,
on Power Rangers? What was your role and position there? What all did you do?
that's an interesting question, and that is one that I don't think anybody's ever asked me that
Really?
in that way. Yeah, no, people just I guess people assume that I was a producer, and I
Right.
wasn't. Although I will say I did a lot of the work of a producer, but
Okay.
not credited. So that is a sad reality of my career. I have producer is just a project manager. Some
Sure.
producers raise financing and will arrange for distribution and do various other things, but it's project management. It's not like there's a secret, it's like a secret. It's just like you can call somebody a producer and they might have different roles that
Yeah.
are can be boiled down to project
Sure.
management. And so that's what I was doing on Power Rangers, but I didn't excuse me, get any
You're good.
credit. So I was first hired as Frank Ward's assistant. So I came into his company through the temp agency and then was hired as his assistant. And then after like a year and a half of working there, there was only one other employee, and she was the director of development. And then she left. And so then I thought, oh, I'll be the director of development. And Frank didn't really want that. He wanted me to still be the assistant and do everything else. So so that's what I did. And I really didn't even, honest to God, I did not have a title there. If people ask me, I'll say I was director of development because
Sure.
there was nobody else who was doing it. It was all me. But like some days I would be negotiating a distribution deal or working with writers or artists. And then some days I'd be buying Christmas presents for all of Frank's kids and stepkids, and picking up his dry cleaning, getting kids from
Okay.
school,
Oh
pet sitting,
wow.
whatever, typing up his divorce deposition, whatever, whatever
Right.
needed to be done. And so I got to say that's not the role that I thought that I was signing up for when I was
No.
temping. But that's I didn't know. I was young and naive, and I did not know that other assistants were having very similar experiences. I thought it was just me. I was like, what
Right.
about me screams loser that I want to go pick up dry cleaning and get Pokemon cards and
Right.
whatever. What, and not for research either. Not for research, for
Oh.
gifts and whatever.
Right.
And so but that's quite common in Hollywood, and it doesn't matter if you have an MBA or an MFA or a
Mhm.
PhD or whatever. And if you really want to work in the business, um, that's you just have to put up with a lot. You have
Yeah.
to accept that or if you want to have high standards for yourself, I guess you can try working in another industry because there's going to be
Yeah.
somebody else who's willing to pick up dry
Uh-huh.
cleaning and kids from school as well at the
Yeah.
same time they're negotiating deals and putting together a
Yeah.
shoot or producing a pilot or whatever. So
Yeah.
but I think maybe on one thing that I worked on, I got a production manager credit because I insist. Like I made a big stink about it, and
Yeah.
luckily I
You'd
wasn't
earned that
fired
credit.
for making a big stink. But one thing that I got out of the job that I'm very grateful for is the chance to do voiceover. And again, it was a case of me making a big stink and being told no and not giving up, and then Frank relenting at a certain point. And I think at the point that he relented and let me, put myself forward as a voice actor for some of the things we were working on, he knew he was going to be closing up shop imminently, and so he probably figured like, oh, this will be a good distraction for Marlene, or like, maybe she'll have some other form, she'll have this as a form of income or something after we close up shop. But I
Yeah.
had at least a good year and a half where I was doing a lot of voice work,
Nice.
all dubbing on
Okay.
uh on animated shows
Sure.
that Renaissance Atlantic, which is the company we were involved with in some capacity. And so Frank very generously actually had called up the head of post production at Saban Entertainment, who was
Mhm.
Eric Rollman. Hi, Eric. I'm still friendly with Eric. And he's like, hey, Marlene might want to do voiceover on some of your shows. So if you have anything, just keep her in mind. And God bless Eric. He put me in so many things.
That's
And I didn't
awesome.
have to audition either. Now, I wasn't like the star of the show.
No.
I was doing Walla mostly, which is like it's the equivalent of an extra on like
Okay.
crowd scenes, but
Oh,
with
okay.
your voice. And so you're doing, and incidental characters like, oh, there's fairy number one who has like one line in this episode. Let's get somebody from the
Sure.
Walla group to do it. That's sort of
Okay.
the way of things with
Sure.
voiceover. So I got to do a lot of that, and it was great. That was the best part of that job,
Yeah.
was getting to do all those voiceover roles.
Yeah, one quote I heard you say on an interview that I resonates with me so much is you had gone in for a job interview for a job that was not in entertainment at all. And they were looking through your resume and they're like, you worked with so and so and done so. Why do you want to work here? And you're like, if you knew.
I know.
And I get that all the time. Like, oh, your job is awesome. Like, this is not my job. My job is managing an apartment complex. This is not my job. There is a reason why this is not my job because it is not. Yeah, you get to hang out with rock stars and interview people like you, but it's not always as glamorous and amazing as people think it is. So there's a lot of crap you have to deal with and put up with when it comes to anything in the entertainment industry at all that people don't really realize is there. But is there anything that really stands out that you've worked on, that you've been a part of, that maybe people may not think of? Because people obviously go straight to Sonic a lot of the time with you. But is there anything that you're personally really proud of that you've worked on or done or written yourself that really stands out to you that you're like, this is what I just love this?
Well, there's Blanche's Beach on Buzz, my short film with my two nieces. And it was really great to work with them because at the time they were living in Singapore. So I barely ever saw them, and they were little girls, and I don't have any kids, and I love kids. And we were just at home. Oh, yeah, Blanche is very nostalgic about this part of our lives. um, and I had gone back to New Orleans for Christmas break, and my brother and his family were there, and my nieces were there, and it was pouring rain the whole time, and they were so bored, and they're like, Aunt Marlene, what are we gonna do? And they did enjoy playing with Blanche, but my older niece Isabella just got the idea, like, oh, because she had a new iPad and she really liked filming things with the iPad, and she's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
let's make a movie with Blanche." So that's what we did, and she she was the cinematographer. She edited it.
That's
She,
awesome.
I mean, it was incredible. I was like the grown up in the room. So, and then afterwards, it came out so cute. I thought, like, well, I'm gonna I'm going to enter it into some film festivals. And tip for you and all your listeners, there are quite a few children's film festivals out
Really?
there where for like kid filmmakers. And
Really?
I thought, this is a great thing to enter
That's
into those kid
awesome.
filmmaker competitions, because my collaborators are legit kids.
Yeah.
And so so that's what I did. I entered it, and I was a maniac. I entered it in so many film festivals and competitions, and it gets kind of addictive. I
I
used to
bet.
do it a lot for employers, and it was just kind of like, got to do this again. It's time to submit for the Emmys, and usually a lot of work and not a lot of
Mhm.
payoff.
Yeah.
But this was so, oh, it was so joyful. And to, like, the very first thing that we submitted Blanche's Bichon Buzz into, my niece Isabella, who is the director and cinematographer at 10 years old, they made a special award for her. So the film played in I think it was it was the San Luis Obispo Film Festival, and it was chosen for like a youth category, but she was like the youngest director by many
Wow.
years. And so they created a special award for her, and she got a check for $100. So,
He
like,
was
that was,
rich.
I know. Now she did have to split that with her sister, which caused some drama.
Oh
But
gosh.
still, I mean, it was, and we got, there was a nice trophy and a certificate. It was incredible, and that was our very first competition that
That's
we
so
entered.
cool.
So it was really great, because by the time the award came in and everything, they were back in Singapore, and but it was just such a nice bonding thing, because they
Yeah.
were so far away, and then I had a reason to, like, give them good news every now and then. We get in a festival and stuff like that. So that's probably my proudest and
Yeah.
most endearing achievement.
That is awesome. Um, how can people get in touch with you for Pink Poodle, do work with you, get involved, reach out, anything like that?
Yes. Yes. So I have a website, pinkpoodleproductions.com. You can contact me through the website, or you can find me on LinkedIn, where I am holding court all day, every day on LinkedIn. And I also do a lot of work with autism organizations here
Yeah.
in Los Angeles and Southern California. And so I'm very much a part of the Orange County Asperger's support group and autism and entertainment. So I guess, I mean, you can email me at Marlene at
Mhm.
pinkpoodleproductions.com, and no matter what it is that I'm working on, things will come to me at
Yeah.
pinkpoodleproductions.com, and then I can put it in its little box of where it belongs. But yeah, I'm open to working on all kinds of things, from animation to live action to podcasts and nonprofits and all kinds of stuff. Animal welfare endeavors,
I,
all
I
kinds
did
of things.
I did want to ask about autism and entertainment. What stood out about that that made you want to get involved with that? I do have that on my notes. I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
My sister's autistic, and so it's
Oh,
really
wow.
cool. Yeah, to me, it's really cool that you do work with that. How did that
Yeah.
come up?
Again, a total, just uh, something that dropped down from the universe and found me, actually. So a friend of mine was, well, she still is, a teacher at a school in the South Bay of Los Angeles called the Center for Learning Unlimited. And it's a kindergarten through 12th grade program for kids on the spectrum. But about 6 years ago, the school started an adjacent program for adults on the spectrum to study animation as a possible career opportunity. So it's an animation training program for adults,
Hmm.
a 3-year certificate program. And so my friend Beth Mackey is her name, and she's a very talented digital sculptor and artist. She was teaching there in the adult animation program. And so in 2020, the program was still pretty new. It was, they hadn't graduated a class yet, and of course COVID hit, and then it is a physical location, but then everything went online because of COVID. And so there were a lot of adjustments and so forth. It was just a tumultuous time. So Beth just contacted me and said, like, we're 1 year from graduating the first class in this animation program, and everybody's panicked, like, what are we going to do when people graduate? Like, how are they going to find jobs, and what's going to happen? So could you talk to the administration and tell them everything's going to be okay? And I said, I could do that, but I have no experience with the autism community.
Yeah.
I am, like, it's hard for neurotypical people to find work in Hollywood, especially during COVID.
Yeah, and in 2020, we didn't know everything was going to be okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I was like, well, I am a busybody and a good hand holder, so I can talk to these people and just see what happens. I'm usually open to talking with anybody about anything.
Yeah.
So she's like, okay, just do that. So then I just started talking to the woman who started the school and the coordinator of the animation program, and then that led to them engaging me as a consultant. And so I was making the job up as I went along. So I was like the resident entertainment industry liaison. Sometimes they'd call me the job developer or consulting producer or what have you. And so so my job became getting the students work ready or graduation ready. And then we ended up opening a studio for them called Brainstorm Productions. That's a for-hire animation studio. So what happens is that after somebody graduates from the 3-year program, then they move into Brainstorm Productions. And then a big part of my job was bringing in work for hire projects. We did things a lot with independent creators, social media, illustrating children's books, making coloring books. We did short films and music videos, a whole bunch of things. So, and then through that experience, I just got to know a lot of people in the community. And there are a number of organizations like that in Los Angeles, in and around Los Angeles, that train people on the spectrum for various positions in entertainment. So like there's one entity called Game Gen that's about teaching people on the spectrum skills that they would need to pursue a career in video games. And then there's a number of them that focus on like performing, like on camera or voiceover. And then there are a few that focus on music. I mean, Los Angeles is a company town, so
yeah,
it's not really unusual that there would be a lot of these training facilities that would crop up. And some of them are more like day programs to give people on the spectrum just something to do during the day. But a lot of them, and it really depends on the person, how impacted they are by, what their specific needs are. So some people on the spectrum really just want like a day program to occupy themselves during the day. Others really do want to try to break into the business as a professional. And then some of them just don't know. And they it's like going to college. They show up and try to discover what their talents are, their interests are, and stuff like that. So I just found a lot of these different organizations, and I've been working with a number of them. And then last year I became involved with the Orange County Asperger's Support Group, is the nonprofit entity that got a grant to do the first ever Autism and Entertainment Conference. So I ended up becoming the head of PR and sponsorships for the conference, and we're trying to put it together again for next year. So we need to raise the financing and what have you. But we did the first one on April 5th, and it turned out really well. And it was all about employing people on the spectrum in creative careers or careers related to entertainment. We had 66 guest speakers, and half of the attendees were people on the spectrum. Yes, Blanche is also very passionate on this subject too. So half of the attendees were on this people on the spectrum and caregivers, and the
Mhm.
other half of the attendees were potential employers, and there were big employers like Disney was represented there,
Wow.
Nickelodeon, Sony, a number of big companies, but then there are
Sure.
also smaller companies that, and it didn't matter whether the companies had a program in place for this or if they were just open-minded.
Mhm.
It was for everybody to learn and grow.
That's awesome. That is so cool. Like that is amazing. Um, man, Marlene, thank you so much for taking time to do this tonight. Today for you, tonight for me. Um, this has been absolutely great. Thank you so much.
Thank
So
you.
so nice, so awesome. I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Thank you.